So, yesterday I saw Netflix's Army of Thieves, and this is kind of an odd case because I'm not a stranger to having to do these videos multiple times, unfortunately. But most of the time they're due to technical issues that I have or editing errors that I make that I can't fix. So I just have to go back and reshoot the whole thing. This time it's different because I originally shot this video 5 minutes after I saw the movie yesterday. But I wasn't really happy with how it turned out. There was a lot of stuff that I forgot to talk about. There were some things that I think I focused on too much that were kind of irrelevant. So, yeah, I feel like it wasn't a very balanced review. I thought it was just it was just kind of a bad review. So I'm doing it again, and this is of course the next day. But you guys wouldn't even know that. You wouldn't even know this is the second take if I didn't talk about it. But so it wasn't due to any editing errors or technical glitches. I decided to just try this again. And honestly, originally I wasn't even planning to watch the movie at all. I made the point to myself to say, if this movie got good reviews, I would watch it because I know it was going to be terrible and I might as well tear it down. The same thing happened with Justice League. I wasn't originally planning to watch that, at least not immediately. But I decided to, given all the reviews that were coming in, I'm like, nope, this thing needs to be torn down. So that's what I'm going to do here. And honestly, if you saw my review of Army of the Dead, if you haven't, go watch that. But if you want a brief version of what I thought of it, it's a Zack Snyder movie. What do you think I thought of it? It was awful. Everything about it was terrible. The acting, the story, the effects, the music, it was all terrible. So this one is a prequel that nobody asked for, might I add, focusing on the German guy who I now know his name was Ludwig Dieter. I couldn't remember it until I watched this. And yeah, who asked for this? Can somebody tell me who asked for a prequel on this guy? Like I said in my review, he was probably the only likable character in the film, or as close to likable as you can get when you're a wimpy annoyance. But still, a fact that remains is that he was the least unlikable out of the entire bunch. But that doesn't mean I want a whole prequel film about him. Again, if you will, the same thing what's odd about this film is that it's a prequel that focuses on the wrong thing. I thought this was going to be a film about how he developed his crazy safecracker skills. Nope, that's all skipped over. He's already a master safecracker when the movie starts. Just like Army of the Dead, the stuff that takes place before the actual movie would have been more interesting than the actual film. In Army of the Dead, that little 5-minute sequence of the zombies taking over Las Vegas and them getting everybody out or getting as many people out as possible and then eventually them closing it off, that would have been a much better film than what we ended up with. Instead, we ended up with a shitty heist film with the least interesting use of sorry, I'm still fighting a losing battle with allergies. It's they had the backdrop of Las Vegas, which is the most interesting setting you can get, and they wasted it. Percy Jackson was in Las Vegas for 10 minutes, and it made more use of the backdrop, and it made more use with its visuals than this movie did in 2.5 hours. But then we have this one. This is set in, I believe it's in London, even though the guy's German. I don't know where this takes place, actually. I know they go to a couple different locations to crack the safes, which I'll get into in a bit, but I don't know where this starts off. So, yeah, again, what happens before this, him developing his safecracker skills and how he became so skilled would have been much more interesting than what we got. Instead, we get another bland heist movie. Though I will give credit, it's not nearly as bad as Army of the Dead. That's a hurdle low enough to trip over, but the fact remains, it's better. It still sucked, but it sucked less. So yeah, I might as well rip into pretty much everything about this is a negative as well, but again, the story is stupid. It's Dieter, who his real name is Sebastian, apparently, The reveal that Ludwig Dieter was a fake name, what did that add to the story? Absolutely nothing. Or the reveal that this safe that that was in Las Vegas that they broke into was the fourth in a series that he was working with a team on, that he was working with a team to correct all of them in order. What did that add to the story? Absolutely nothing. This adds nothing to Army of the Dead. If it did, then I would understand it existing, but no, it just adds extra bullshit and creates some issues. For one, the other three safes were also owned by the Japanese businessman. I believe they say in this movie it's Blai Tanaka? I'm remembering more stuff about this film than I did on Army of the Dead. Because when I reviewed Army of the Dead, I couldn't remember anybody's name. I couldn't remember barely anything important about it because there was nothing interesting. Here, I at least remembered everything. I remembered people's names. But, yeah, so apparently he owned the other three, and Dieter never bothered to bring this up in Army of the Dead. And if he did, I don't feel like going back and watching that piece of shit to check. But I don't think he did. So there's a big continuity error right there. They showed him a picture of it, so he should know who this guy is, but he never says anything about it. And not only that, he's with a team in this, like I said, and they're composed of all the heist movie stereotypes you've seen before. We of course have the safecracker, we have the getaway driver, who really has no purpose in being in this movie other than being the getaway driver. He has barely any lines to begin with. And he's not one of those, mute types where he, barely ever talks. No, he talks, but he just barely has any screen time because he has no screen presence. The actor wasn't bad, but he was given nothing to work with. There's the tech guru, and then there's the bona fide action hero. That's literally how they describe him. They're not even hiding their cliches. And his name is Brad Cage. Yeah, no, that's not his real name. I never once thought that was his real name, and of course it's not. And then we, of course, have the one person who has no purpose in being there whatsoever, but she's along for the ride anyway. She's supposed to be, the main one of the bunch, and she has no purpose being there. So, all these characters are the same stereotypes you've seen before. They do the same thing you'd expect. Again, probably the most entertaining one was the getaway driver. I believe his name was Rolf. And the first time I heard that name, I immediately thought to the Muppet. Who wouldn't? Because he had some funny lines, but other than that, he had no screen time. He didn't have enough screen time for anybody to really have a connection with him. The tech guru named Karina, I guess. Again, she doesn't really do much other than fuck with computers, and she, again, has no screen presence. The actress does fine, but it's just the script. The script is the main problem with this film. Nathalie Emmanuel is in this, and of course know her that she's a great actress. She of course was in Game of Thrones. She was in the Maze Runner sequels and did very well in those. She was hardly in the third one, and really she wasn't in much of the second one, but she was still great in those. And she does good here, but again, the script gives her nothing to work with. That's the best thing you can take away from these actors. Although the guy who plays Brad Cage, you can tell he's kind of a discount He looks like Hugh Jackman. Not nearly as badass as Hugh Jackman. And you would think, much like Army of the Dead, there's a lot of action sequences. No, just like Army of the Dead, it's just as... I was even more bored with this one. Army of the Dead, I was infuriated the entire time. I was so angry that I had any hope that this movie would be anything but an utter train wreck. This one, I expected it to be an utter train wreck, and I was bored out of my freaking mind. There was one fight scene in this, and it was one where Emmanuel's character, I can't remember her name anymore. She's fighting off two, security guards guarding the safe, and of course it has the stupid, rampant slow motion thing, because even though Snyder didn't direct this one, his hands you can still visibly see his handprint over it. Because it has the garbage slow motion, and the fight scene itself is not especially well choreographed or well shot, and it's using the slow motion to hide that. And again, nothing really comes together in this film. I mean, the plot is at least coherent, which is more than I could say for Army of the Dead, which was littered with more plot holes than Swiss cheese. This one doesn't have a ton of plot holes. It has a couple. Like one I mentioned with Tanaka, although that's more of a plot hole that comes in between the two films than this one as a whole, but whatever. And Okay, so something else I need to talk about this film is the music. Now, what Zack Snyder usually does is that when he directs films, he usually gets one of two people to do the scores. Hans Zimmer or Tom Holkenborg, aka Junkie XL. He got Holkenborg for Army of the Dead, and the music was terrible. I don't care for Junkie XL's music. I really don't. The only time I've liked it was in the Come Together remix from Justice League, and that was not even in Snyder's Justice League. That was in the theatrical cut, so there you go. And I have a feeling Gary Clark Jr. had more to do with that than Junkie XL, but whatever, not the point. This one, he got Hans Zimmer, and there was some... Well, he didn't direct this or write it, thank God, which is probably why it wasn't a complete train wreck, why it wasn't as bad as Army of the Dead, just because he didn't write or direct it. He co-wrote the story and produced it, but, again, he produced The Suicide Squad, and that wasn't a complete train wreck. So, and then we have Hans Zimmer, who did some of the music for this, but it's all off. Like, especially in the dream sequences, the music is noticeably terrible. It's so out of place and does not match up what's on screen. There's a couple of chases, they suck. There's a chase where Sebastian is outrunning the police on a bicycle, and I'm pretty sure the bike changed color between shots. Either that, or he picked up a different bike after crashing one that I must have been in such a zombified state that I completely missed, but if I didn't, it means the bike changed color between shots. So, whatever. This movie just doesn't make any sense, either. Why was this a movie? No, not like the plot itself makes no sense. The plot is overly simplistic. It's so easy to follow, but why was this made? The funny thing is that probably the only completely positive thing I can give this is that when they go to different locations, there's always, you know how there's always, most of the time there's text that shows up that tells you where you're going, even though in this one, it's kind of obvious where they're going. They say where they're going, and you can tell by all the landscapes and the tourist attractions. And something funny that I want to bring up that the MCU does is that they just put big white text. It's like the most bland white text you can get, and I think that's really funny that they do that. And I thought it was just that one time for Civil War. No, they do it for the rest of the time, and I think that's really funny. This movie does the opposite, and it tries to get creative with it. Like, when they go to Paris, it has the letters in, like, 3D font. It's, like, kind of angled, and the A is the Eiffel Tower. That's actually kind of cool. And in Prague, it's kind of, like, floating in the water, and then when they go to some kind of casino, I don't remember where it is, it's got the location in, like, bright letters, like, kind of what you'd see on a sign in a casino, like, attached to a car. It looks pretty cool. I know there was another one, but I can't remember what it is. So, yeah, the best thing about this movie is text. Let's take that for what it's worth. This movie has no reason to exist. Don't watch this. If you hated Army of the Dead like I did, you will hate this film as well. If you liked Army of the Dead, I don't know why. You'll probably like this too. Again, I don't know why, but... Yeah, so... Yeah, this movie sucked. 1.3 out of 5. Yeah, that's fair. Because again, it wasn't nearly as bad as Army of the Dead, because I wasn't infuriated. I was just bored out of my mind. So thank you all so much for watching, and now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go watch something hopefully way better than this. I get to go watch Last Night in Soho.